Welcome to Sustainable Packaging with Cory Connors. Today's guest is my very special friend, Brandi Parker. She is the brand level sustainability consultant at her very new company, Parker Brands. Hey, Brandi, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing so good, Cory. Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
It's my honor to have you back on the show and get to talk about your new venture. I'm so excited and proud of you. This is such an amazing venture of opportunity for new companies to work with you and your wisdom. But let's talk a little bit about your background first, and then we'll get to kind of where you are today.
I think, and a lot of people that I talk to in this very beautiful industry of packaging and now the narrower focus of sustainable packaging is so many people I talk to came down a winding road to get where they are. I think a lot of us find ourselves all of a sudden in packaging, and that certainly happened to me. So I've been in the industry about 20 years, working in branding and packaging design specifically. And through that time, I kind of started off in the technical end. I had kind of a mind towards how things were made. Started in, how things were printed and understanding print production, things like that. Moved into how things were manufactured. And all of this, incidentally, along the way on the agency side. So doing this in tandem very tightly with design.
Mhm.
And in the last few years, just really focusing in on sustainability. Consumer packaged goods has become one of the hottest topics in sustainability. It's certainly the topic that all of us as consumers relate to the most.
Yes.
So it's become something, that people are really aware of. And so likewise, I wanted to get smart, and I wanted to focus more on how we could start to make even better decisions, make them faster, make them on larger scales. So that's what I've been focused on. So I started the first sustainability role at Pearl Fisher. And I think, on a lot of agency sides, it's kind of a unique thing. So I started that, did that for a few years. And now I have just, as you mentioned, gone out on my own with Parker Brands as a consultant. So really
Amazing.
hoping to just keep learning. I feel like we're all sort of making our way at the same time, but most importantly, moving this forward, because I am passionate about it and a lot of other people like you are too. And so it's a wonderful community to be a part of.
I agree. Very well said. We were talking about it before we started, how this community feels like a family.
Yeah.
And you get to run into the same people, like we talked about Sustainable Packaging Coalition, Paul Nowak. He's like a friend. I just feel like he's my friend. And what an honor to have people like him and you be my friend. And to get to work
Likewise.
in an industry where people truly care about this world and want it to be a better place for our kids and their kids. And it's just an honor. But let's talk about Parker Brands. I know your history at Pearl Fisher was incredible. You got to work with some really big, large scale brands and make some major impacts on the world of sustainable packaging. But what's going to be the focus now at Parker Brands?
Yeah, I mean, I love that you asked that question because I can answer it in this way, which is my family.
Yeah.
My family is my focus.
Right.
A big driver for me to break out on my own was the pandemic, relocation, and being near to my parents, my wife's parents, having a child, and really being able to move that priority to the top.
Yeah.
But beyond that, obviously, the biggest thing I'm focused on beyond that is making the world more sustainable, especially through consumer packaged goods. So my focus, my mission sort of remains the same. I had, about 9.5 beautiful years at Pearl Fisher, and I love those guys. And we had some really great experiences. And so I'm looking forward to really taking those experiences forward and doing them on my own. I get to be in control. I get to choose how much I work, right? And what I work on and who I work with, which is an extraordinary privilege and an honor. But what's really wonderful about that is I can really focus and I can really take the time that I want to in the way that I want to, and still have, time left over for my family, which is extremely important to me. So I am working with agencies. I'm
Mhm.
working with clients and brands directly. I'm working even with suppliers. So looking to continue to do what I do best, which is connect the dots. So connecting the dots between suppliers and brands, designers and suppliers, and all of everything in between, making a sustainable difference.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. And that can be one of the most valuable parts of the consulting process
Mhm.
is not just coming up with an idea for new packaging, which isn't, I'm not saying that's easy because it's not, but
Right.
how do you take that concept into fruition and really make it work? And with the supplier and having these relationships you've built up over 20 years in your history of actually paying attention to how things are made, that's such an important part of this process. Well done.
Thanks, man.
I-
I really appreciate that. And that's been kind of an interesting response that I didn't even consider in talking and meeting new people is they're like, oh, you're a consultant. And I'm like, yeah, I know people have a preconceived notion about what that is, but then I
Right.
show them my case studies, I talk my experience, and they're like, oh, you actually make things happen. And I'm like, yeah,
You're not
that's
just theory.
what
Yeah.
consultants do. But I think that there's some kind of interesting reputation of what the word consulting means. And so I guess on a small degree, or maybe a large one, I hope to change that preconceived notion.
That's an incredible point. I think a lot of people are concerned with the motives of
Yes.
consultants. And I think when people meet you, they will understand quickly that you have best intentions. And so I'm excited for your future there. That's going to be awesome. But I want
Thank
to
you.
talk about the Sustainable Packaging Coalition, the infamous SPC that we're all big fans of.
Yeah.
You made a huge, or I should say, Paul made a huge announcement with you at the latest event in Austin. Can you
Yeah.
talk us through that and what's going on there?
Sure. I mean, look, there's not an awful lot of detail yet,
Yeah.
but I'm so excited at the possibilities. So, Paul, thank you very much, Paul, announced that I am partnering with the SPC to head up a new collaborative, and it's going to be the Design Collaborative at SPC. And SPC, so they basically one of the things that they do best, right, is bringing members together to focus on a specific topic. And they have many
Right.
collaboratives across a lot of different topics. You can go to the Sustainable Packaging Coalition website and look at those collaboratives. And as a matter of fact, one of those collaboratives recently developed into its own entity, which has become
Yeah.
How to Recycle.
Yes.
That
It's
actually started
amazing.
as a collaborative, right?
Yeah.
So really it's an opportunity to focus on a topic, identify opportunities and challenges, bring members together and make something happen. So in the case of the Design Collaborative, we haven't started yet, but what I'm really excited about doing is writing a mission statement and what
Oh,
we
cool.
set out to do. And really the basis of that is bringing design more into the fold, making sustainability and sustainable packaging more accessible to designers that are out there making recommendations every single day. But then likewise, having designers feed into the process. Design is an important part of our sustainable future. So, and it's been a part of my platform for years now.
Yeah.
Paul shares that vision. Getting more design agencies and designers as members of the coalition is certainly a mission and an objective. And just getting those voices in the room. We've had
Yeah.
historically, brands, suppliers, and that's fantastic. Engineers, all of those people, we need all these people at the table. We also need design. So I'm looking forward to where we start to take this, what our mission statement will be, and certainly, what ends up happening with design as an industry, especially in
Right.
packaging. Designers are coming up through the ranks wanting to know about this. I've spoken to so many student groups across the country at different universities, and all the designers have the same questions. How do I get into designing for sustainability?
Right.
And so, yeah, in an ideal world, this collaborative actually helps students do that.
Yeah. Well, that's
Yeah.
amazing. I agree with you. I spoke at Cal Poly a few weeks
Oh,
ago
very
and got
nice.
to their little group called Polypack, and
Yeah,
it was
Polypack.
about they were amazing students, and they asked the most insightful questions, and it was like, wow, the future is bright for designers and for packaging. In my opinion, students have a focus on making a difference, and I've been excited to be able to help spark that along and encourage that thought process. But I wanted to give you a compliment because I've listened to a lot of speakers, and hearing you speak at the SPC a couple times, you got to speak, I think twice.
Yeah, which
Well,
was incredible.
awesome. Yeah. One time Paul interviewed you, one time you were on your own and as a keynote, but well done, first of all. Second of all, have you had any training, or what's the background there to that made you such a dynamic, just full of energy, full of wisdom? And I left excited. I wanted to go design something, and I'm not even a designer. So tell us about it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's probably like the best compliment I've ever received. So by the way,
Yeah, thank you.
incredible. Well, you know what? It helps to love what you're talking about. Anytime you can pick a topic that you just are one with, in this case, that's the case for me. I think it starts to come through naturally. I actually haven't had any formal training, but I have had, a lot of practice and just putting myself out there. When I was a kid, teenager, and through college, I was a performer. I, played in bands and stuff. And actually a lot of performance techniques and things I've learned over time, how to take up space on stage, how to project my voice and all those things, it ended up being pretty transferable to this. And my love of music comes through easily in that context, but my love of sustainability and design, clearly came through in that context, and I'm really proud of that. But what I would say is, for anybody that's looking to embark on a career in speaking, or just doing a couple of speaking engagements from time to time, just start doing it.
Right.
Do it locally, do it for your office, do it for your family, and just start to get used to it and practice. Practice has really been the key for me. But love what you're talking about, because it's forced otherwise, and people can tell.
Oh, 100%. What kind of instrument did you play in the band? Or
Guitar
bands?
mainly.
Oh, awesome.
Guitar mainly.
Right.
And when I was in high school, I was in marching band, which is slightly different kind of performance. So, yeah, when I was playing in, smaller bands on the stage, I feel like that,
That's
I
incredible.
don't know, it transfers.
Well, you were one of the highlights for me at the SPC, but what were some of the highlights for you?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I, like you, which I very much appreciate, I walked away from so many talks, panels that I think in other contexts, other conferences might have been dry, but not, this SPC was like very energetically charged in a way that I hadn't felt in a while. And I think a lot of that probably is to, this is one of the first conferences I've been back to since the pandemic. So, I've been doing conferences virtually. This is one of the first ones I've been back in person. So that energy of being in person, I think, helped a lot. One of my favorite moments, though, was Dr. Wendy Wood coming up there and talking about human behavior. This is also a subject I talk about a lot. I am not an expert in any way, shape, or form on it, but I love that Paul brought in someone who has a psychology background, who teaches it, who researches it, what makes people behave in a certain way and what makes them change. Right. And I loved her analogs to talking about sustainable change and understanding how to create behavior change in a positive way. And she was talking about, the quitting smoking campaigns. It's really about making it inconvenient rather than shaming people. Making it inconvenient was like really the key. And just all of her examples were so practical and real world. And in a way, I felt validated, because there are cases where we as sustainability professionals, we focus a lot on consumer behavior change. But there is a balance, right? There's sometimes where I think the things that we need to be solving for is existing consumer behaviors rather than forcing people to change. And so balancing that energy, and I felt like she validated that for me. So that was definitely a highlight. That was like the first main stage day. And I just loved the diversity of backgrounds of people overall. We talked a lot about actually diversity and inclusion as a topic in sustainability, which is definitely related. And it's the first time I've seen it talked about in such a big platform at SPC. It was just an incredible experience and conference. And I would just really recommend to anybody out there listening to this podcast to become a member, or at the very least, go to some of those conferences that allow non-members so you can kind of see what it's about. It was incredible.
I've been very impressed with Barbara and Danielle and the whole marketing team over there at
Yeah.
SPC that works with Paul. They're incredible, hardworking people. They really want to, they really work hard to make it the best event and the most valuable event. I think I just felt like I was almost upset by how many speakers were speaking at the same time at certain points, because I'm like,
Yeah.
I want to go to all of these. How can we make this 2 weeks, or can we, let's just get breaks. Like, there was a point where, and some of them were downstairs and upstairs. I found myself literally running upstairs at one point, like, I've got to get to this next event.
I
But
know that was actually a challenge,
yeah.
there were so many great topics going on at the same time.
Yeah.
But I love the way that they clustered them. And yeah, it felt well paced in those terms. And yeah, those guys, I mean, they do so much for such a small team. They do an incredible work. So yeah.
It's impressive. I got to work with Danielle at not this one, but the one before, and we did a podcast live from the event. And to see her add that into her schedule was impressive, but hopefully we get to do that again someday. But I'm excited.
Yeah, I bet that was fun doing a live podcast.
It was really cool. I mean, I got to interview people from big companies like Linda from Kraft Heinz and Patrick from Annie's, which is the big cereal company, just like, and awesome people, really an exciting opportunity to get to spread the word about what big companies are doing to be more sustainable in packaging. So
yeah,
really
that's
cool.
fantastic. Linda Roman and I sat on a panel a few years back, and I was very impressed with her as well.
She's brilliant. And like we talked about before this show, I got to sit next to her on the bus on the way to a tour and got to meet her. Like, this is so serendipitous. Like, just to I'm like, I'm going to interview you tomorrow, by the way. And she's like, oh, great.
Oh, really?
And it's like, oh, who are you? And I, because this is, she had no idea who I was at the time. And it was really cool to get to meet her and talk about her family and her history, and then go see a paper mill together. And that was really neat to experience that as humans, in this world of sustainable packaging.
There were so many cool tours, and I waited too late and missed all of them, but I will not make that mistake again, because they look pretty awesome.
Are you going to go to the one in Boston?
Yeah, I'd love to make it to that. I just need to figure out, logistics, but it's worthy. Definitely.
Yeah, I'm excited to go there. Our CMO, Chris Bradley, will be speaking at that event. I'm excited to
Oh,
hear
really?
him.
Okay.
Yeah. But let's talk a little bit about sustainable packaging. I'd love to hear some of your wisdom on what's some secrets that you could share about how a brand can focus on sustainability.
Sure. Well, I think the first secret is that there are no secrets.
Yeah.
In my humble opinion.
That's the answer. That's the answer. Yeah.
No, but honestly, this is in the manner in which we are pursuing sustainable packaging now, it is such a nascent adventure. Right? And the truth is, and I think this is a freeing truth, is no one of us know the answer. Certainly many of us know answers. Yeah. And we know answers for now that might change with technology, that might change with consumer behavior, etc. So we know answers, but we don't know the answer. And the freeing piece of that really is, this is for brands, is you have the freedom to carve your way. What is sustainability to you? How are you going to get there? It's up to you to define that journey. And I think that's another exciting thing about being a consultant right now, is there's so much to learn. There's so much that none of us know. And there's so much because it's ever changing and ever evolving, right? We're always sort of trying to catch up, or at least stay ahead of what's happening. And that's the beautiful and exciting thing. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, there's not really a secret. I suppose the techniques I've adapted over time are trying to change the existing context that we solve problems in. Yeah. Here is problem. Let's take a narrow view, and then here's the solution. I think we have to change that. I think forcing things into linear ways of thinking from start, middle to finish. I think that doesn't exist anymore. I think it's
Right.
just attacking from all sides at the same time, involving lots of people from lots of different disciplines and backgrounds at the same time,
Yeah.
and working together. And that's going to shift the paradigm for the actual problem solving, but certainly it will shift how we come across those solutions too. So I'm actually fascinated with how we approach the problems we're looking at. I'm
Yeah.
fascinated with breaking apart old assumptions,
Yeah.
breaking apart, just even the old design agency paradigm,
Yeah.
where it goes in, it briefs, it goes to one team, they fiddle with it, it goes to the next team, they fiddle with it.
Silos.
We have to break all of that apart. It's got to kind of be, if you've ever been a part of a workshop or a brainstorm, this is the future of the way we need to be working, a holistic view, and, getting unexpected people in at unexpected times. How often have you, either from, the business that you work with to just being in this world, have you heard, I wish they would have involved me sooner,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Why didn't they ask me about it? I'm totally interested in this and I could have added this value.
Yes.
It's very well said. Very true that we need to look at and listen to. We need to open our ears and listen to the brand and say, what are you trying to accomplish?
Mhm.
What would be success for, what would that look like? And then getting the right people in the room to really talk it through and to brainstorm the concepts. And yeah, very true. I'd love to know maybe one or two of your most inspiring projects that you've worked on, something in your history that was like, hey, this was a real home run. I'm so stoked that I worked on that one.
Oh man. I mean, look, there's definitely a lot of them. And, I was but a small piece in a bigger
Sure.
team puzzle. I'd have to say, like, going out on my own as consultant, that's the thing I miss the most. So
Yeah.
finding my way into collaborative situations is still a
Yeah.
key goal for me, because I do miss the team as of Pearl Fisher, especially. But yeah, just to speak broadly for just a second,
Yeah.
as somebody in production, as production director, we called it head of realization at Pearl Fisher. One of the key things that I always wanted to make sure was that I was at the table at the briefing. So
Yeah.
I was in production, but I was there when we got the project. Why?
Hmm.
Because there's key questions I could ask that nobody else thought of, and
Right.
likewise I could hear firsthand that discussion, which is incredibly key for how the project goes. So I would say among the best and most successful projects I worked on is ones where we truly had that multidisciplinary team at the table at the beginning.
Yeah.
One that I show pretty often and always gets a chuckle are these bougie eggs that I worked on with Pearl Fisher.
Love that project. Yeah.
It was so fun. So it's the parent company is Pete and Jerry's. They came to us several years ago. Gosh, I want to say it was like 2019, 2018, something like that. I think
Great
it's,
timing, right?
yeah.
Nothing
And
going on then.
yeah, exactly. It was the precursor. So they came to us and they said, look, we have a brand that we're creating. And the reason we're creating it is because it's celebrating humane treatment of chickens
I
and
love it.
producing truly pasture raised eggs. And there's not a lot of clear regulation around what constitutes a pasture raised chicken or a pasture raised egg. So a lot of these companies are taking it on themselves to really define that and kind of home in on, okay, this is really pasture raised and this is what it means to us. So anyway, Pete and Jerry's came to us. They do a lot of commoditized eggs. They're a national distributor, and they wanted to create this brand, Consider Pastures. But one of the key pieces of this, right, with the humane treatment of animals is it means a cost increase in the goods. And so how do we start to not only celebrate the fact that this is about truly pasture raised eggs, how do we communicate that to the consumer in a concise way? Because they weren't
Yeah.
planning on a lot of marketing or advertising touch points. Packaging becomes that touch point, right? So how do we speak to the consumer in an effective way, in a quick way, and in a way that justifies a higher price?
Yeah.
So we took that on board, and work together on a really extremely cool solution, which I think now, ironically enough, they're starting to move away from. And I don't entirely know the reason why, but they are changing the
Fun.
packaging. I think they're shifting the brand. I'm sure there's a very big story, but
Sure.
anyway.
Reasons for everything. Yeah.
Yeah, but looking at early 20th century egg packaging, this is before molded fiber became as ubiquitous as it is. Certainly molded fiber in its current state, quite sustainable in that it goes in the recycling stream. It can decompose. It does use a lot of energy depending on the method, but to say it concisely, molded fiber is pretty sustainable. But the problem with molded fiber in its existing form, especially with regard to egg cartons, it's hard to print on. It's hard to print really nice on. So how do we make a premium looking package that, again, in an instant on that shelf communicates to consumers this is worth paying more for? And there's some great brands out there doing variations with it. Like Vital Farms is doing a cool thing where they've got the molded fiber, but then they have an SBS board lid that is fully printable that goes on top. We opted not to do that because we wanted to kind of make a monomaterial approach. So looking at this early 20th century egg packaging that's all made from flat board, it can be flat packed and shipped and cut and then formed. It's not as protective as molded fiber, but the benefit of this particular brand, it wasn't going to be widely distributed. It was going to be a concentrate regional distribution. So it made sense to take some of those sacrifices, right? Packaging's first function is protection. So we looked at weighing those pros and cons. We worked with an awesome supplier, AutoJohn, who did a lot of wonderful heavy lifting around that engineering. And we came out with a piece of packaging that was printed both sides, could tell that whole story to the consumer when they opened the package. They could read all about why these eggs were different.
Really cool.
Little hint of foil stamping on it, just enough so it could stay in the paper recycling stream, and just touches like that. So it was this holistic solution because all of us were at the table. From a production standpoint, it was like, okay, here's the limitations of molded fiber. How do we work around that? Here's this option. How do we work with this? How do we make sure it stays sustainable and lightweight? And then, hit all the brief requirements, like, communicating to the consumer. So it was a success because we were all at the table, and it was Instagrammed like crazy. Like consumers were taking pictures of it. And I feel honored to have been a part of that team. Beautiful design team, did a great job. And yeah, it was pretty smooth.
It was amazing. Well done. And I remember when I found out about it was a viral TikTok that I saw.
Really?
Yeah, this somebody I'd never seen before. He made this, anything that says packaging, the TikTok algorithm knows that I'm interested in packaging. So he must have hashtagged packaging. But he said, in exactly the same word, he said, check out these bougie eggs. And it was just like, he bought them and he was like, these eggs are the fanciest, and just went off and on, just like really impressive. And so you certainly accomplished your goal of getting attention. And
in even unexpected ways.
At like viral TikToks for free. Yeah.
But, that's, I think that this is really important, which is packaging obviously is important. And again, its first role is to protect. We can't lose sight of that, even with sustainability. But I think also we can't lose sight of desirability.
Right.
It can still be so desirable and meet all of the sustainable goals it needs. And why is desire important? Well, it goes off the shelf. And we've made this thing, which is commodity, in eggs, but eggs that have the certification of humane certified, and make them matter to consumers, make consumers go, oh, what's this about? Want to find more. And that was all done exclusively through the packaging. So the power of what we have in terms of communication through design, through the materials, through all of those things, it's all applicable not only to desire, but sustainability. And both, you don't have to really exchange one for the other.
Right. Wow, that's a perfect way to end the show. We got to stop right there because that's perfect. Thank you for your wisdom. I want to have you on again in 6 months, and we'll talk about your progress with your new company
I'd love to.
and the SPC and what you're doing. But what's the best way for people to get in touch with you and work with you?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Thanks again, Cory. So you can email me directly, and it's hellobrandyparker@gmail.com. And that's Brandi with an I. So yeah, drop me a line. I love hearing from people. And I also just bought a domain, parkerbrands.eco. And if you haven't heard of it, .eco is an organization, a nonprofit organization, and they're doing amazing things. It's a little bit more expensive in terms of domain per year, but it does get a lot of benefits. And I would encourage those out there working in this industry and sustainability to look into .eco. But I have a placeholder page up there. It's not done, but I'm working on that. But please, yeah, LinkedIn, y'all get at me, and yeah, I love connecting. So thank you.
Thanks again, Brandi. Appreciate you and your wisdom. Thanks again for being on the show. I'd like to also thank Landsberg Aurora for sponsoring this podcast. If you're listening, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next episode, and stay tuned for more. Thanks, Brandi. Appreciate you.
Thanks, Cory.